Okay, good evening, friends. Welcome to the presentation number 66. We're cruising through two witnesses in Babylon, part 32, and we're still cruising through Abomination Desolation, very important topic, but we are studying this in shadow in Solomon's temple, how the abominations took place as God shows it to his prophet, Prophet Ezekiel, and he was shown four abominations and each abomination is greater than the previous one. So we studied last presentation the first of the abominations, that is image of jealousy. And today we are going to study the 70 elders that each has his own incense, and he's burning the incense in his own censer and sitting in a secret chamber. So this abomination is shown to Ezekiel, which is not apparent from outside. So God asks Ezekiel to dig a hole through the wall. And once he digs the wall and makes a hole, Ezekiel goes through the hole that freshly dug according to instructions from God. And then he hits a door which is closed. And then God asks him to open the door, and he opens the door. He sees a full suite of abominations, unspeakable, despicable. And this is committed by 70 elders. And that is the scenario that is shown. And God is telling us that these things are done in secret, they're not apparent. Unless you dig a hole through the wall, which is covered up, and even if you do your detective work and reach to the inner chambers where the abominations are committed by 70 elders, that is, the leaders of Israel, even then you hit a door. God has to open a door. We see door as a symbology for understanding. Please open the door of understanding. God has to grant understanding to properly understand and discern and decipher the abominations that are going on. Still, this is shadow. From shadow, we will understand what will happen in spiritual reality. The spiritual reality is us, our churches, our congregations, our Zoom rooms, and our groups, the church groups. So that is the context we would be dealing with. And let's launch into the things that are done in secret. That is the subject tonight. Things done in secret. There could be good things that can be done in secret. For example, when you give alms to poor, don't let your left hand know the right hand. What does that mean? Do it in secret so that your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. So, the context of doing good in secret is not to seek the praise or recognition of men. But here, the evils are also done in secret. So, that is the subject tonight. To begin with, why evils are done in secret? If you are done, if you do evils openly, then you would be caught, or you would be prosecuted, or you would be avenged, or people may not support you, may not approve you, may not receive you. There are several ramifications. If you see all the sins, evils, and abominations and wickednesses, they are mostly 99.9% of the time, they are done in secret. They're concealed. Even a thief does not walk around telling everybody that he is a thief. In nights, he would go and do the thievery, but daytime, he would not tell people that he's a thief. Why? Because he does it in secret in the night when people are sleeping. So most of the abominations and the sins are committed in secret, and there could come a time when people would openly rob with gun, and people might openly uh, do the LGBTQ, whatever the sins, usually they are done in secret throughout the ages. When the circumstances are permitting and they are no longer afraid, they might commit some sins openly, invisibly, as we are seeing now, as the things are degrading. But I want to address the subject evils and the abominations done in secret. And most of the things that are done in secret, we can broadly classify into two categories. First is the evils done in secret randomly by random persons and random acts. So it could be a pedophile and who claims to be a Christian, but secretly he might be doing the pedophile, whatever his things, and nobody knows about that person doing these things in church. So they accept him as Christian until he is exposed. So this is one form of evil. Isolated individuals doing things in secret. The second category is more sinister, more evil, more lethal, that is organized evil in secret. So the things that are done in secret are actually grouped into people brought together in secret into some kind of organization, which we call secret societies. So, abominations of the temple as shown to the prophet Ezekiel, that is planned for today, and then evils done in secret and darkness. So that is the subject tonight. And unorganized or random secret evils is the first category. And second category is organized secret evils under secret societies. The secret societies is a subject of controversy, and most people don't want to talk about it, don't want to admit that there are such societies. So it is kind of we are stepping outside of the scriptures. So this is not what Bible is directly telling us, even though it is indirectly hinting us in the second abomination that God shows to prophet Ezekiel. But largely, we are going outside the scriptures, and there are Christian researchers who researched quite a bit about this subject, and they have great information to give us. So, this is an effort to make us more open minded, to think more outside the box. That is the drive. And if any of you who are currently listening, either live session or over the internet to the recording, no offense to you. If you belong to any of the secret societies, this is not directed against a secret society or against the people in the secret society. That is not the motive. It is purely an academic discussion. And I have two researchers did their research into how these secret societies are come together and how they are organized and how they work. So first is Professor Veith, and he did his research and he presented a video that is called Total Onslaught, Islamic Connection. The second person who contributed to most of the discussions is Ken Fish. Ken Fish gave an interview, and in this interview, he went through several aspects of the secret societies. So we're going largely on these two sources and try to make a sense out of how these things work. And then we finally uh, come back to a few scriptures and wrap up the subject. So this is the subject tonight. And then scriptures are Ezekiel 8, where God shows the abominations done in secret by leaders of Israel. 70 elders are leaders. These leaders and the temple here, the temple, Solomon's temple, is in shadow it reflects in spiritual reality is us, all the churches, all the groups, wherever Christians form as a group, as small as 2 or 3 people come together as a group, or the larger groups, mid-sized groups, worldwide groups, and hierarchical groups, non-hierarchical groups. You have all variety of groups of Christians, and they call themselves as Christians. When they come together and form groups, then we have to discuss the secret societies, how they affect and how they influence the Christian organizations and Christian uh, practicing of Christianity. So some of these things could be controversial. My policy is take it or leave it. Take it or leave it. If you like it, you take it further. If you don't like it, you something you do not agree with this subject, uh, just disagree with that. So you can ignore this message and move on to the next message. So this is little bit outside the scriptures. So either way, I want to address this because this is uh, widely practiced and widely done in this country as well as whole Western Europe. And surprisingly, it is found all over the world. Very few countries, if at all possible, they are immune from the secret societies. And the secret societies, as we were told by these two sources, they existed for a very long time, even before any of us here in this Zoom room were born. These are ancient rites and ancient organizations, and they existed for many, many centuries and many, many generations under different names and different formats and different purposes. So that's the background. And let's launch into patterns of desolation. Very quickly, I want to go through this because you are familiar with this. A group can be a good beginning, and God's presence is within it. And but something happens, God's presence leaves. Why? There is an abomination that is makes desolate is set up. So when the abomination is set up, that is the time when God's presence leaves that group. And God's faithful people were told to leave that group. And once God's people and God leaves that group, that becomes desolate. Desolate is kind of an abandoned group by God and his people. And once the desolate entity is marked for judgment by God, then it is judged. When it is judged, God sends agencies of judgment and destroy it completely. And when the entity is destroyed, if any good people or any God fearing people who fail to obey, to flee that abomination, they would also be destroyed along with the evil people that are left with that group. So the groups are judged. A group is judged together. And at that point, when the judgment is unleashed, God doesn't care if there are some righteous people in it or not. So while the group is completely destroyed, God works ahead of time and announces that he's no longer happy with this group and he's leaving. So when God makes the announcement, that is the best time to leave. And the desolate entity is destroyed without inhabitant. So nobody survives. Run for your life. That's what God's message is. So you can leave when God leaves, and you can also leave when you see the abomination, when you see that it is going into desolate state, you can also leave. More delay you make, more difficult for you to flee, and it gets riskier for you to leave the group, because group has its great attractions, and if you delay it too much, there is a danger of you being absorbed into this desolate system, and eventually the plagues would come and destroy it completely without inhabitant. But don't flee to another group that is already desolate, but go to mountain of God, the Zion, the true church. That's the basic script that we are talking about. And the four abominations, image of jealousy, we discussed last time. And the second one, every form of creeping things, abominable things, idols in secret, 70 elders of Israel. There is the leaders. These are top leaders of Israel. And for us, these are leaders of our Christian groups. They could be pastors, they could be ministers, they could be elders, they could be treasurers, deacons, deaconesses, all the leadership. They are represented as 70 elders in Israel. Now, the abomination is now, we were told, as shown to Ezekiel, the prophet, that this second abomination is happening at the leadership of the church, the leadership of the Christian groups. This is where uh, Ezekiel was shown. And this is done by leadership in secret. It is not readily visible. The group may visible very healthy, and it could maintain a facade that it is actually a very God-fearing and faithful to Word of God and doing wonderful works. And from outside, it is a great facade, and you don't even suspect that there is problem inside. But as Ezekiel was told, when we dig a hole through the wall of the facade, then we will begin to see, when God opens the door of understanding, we will see the abominations done by the leadership, the leaders. So this is where we are going. And third is a woman weeping for Tammuz. This we will do it next presentation. And 25 men worshipping sun towards east. Again, we would do in future presentations. So this is the temple, and Ezekiel was brought to the northern gate, and image of jealousy. Then he was asked to dig a hole. So hole and a door, then he see the chamber and 70 elders. So we will quickly go through Ezekiel 8, not many scriptures today. We will cover few scriptures, but mostly concepts, mostly diagrams and concepts. So this is Solomon's temple, and great prayer, great dedication. Everything has great beginning. And God is so pleased with the building of the temple and the prayer of Solomon. He comes and blesses the temple with his presence. The whole temple is filled with glory of God, filled with smoke. So God's presence comes and stays. God's presence with his people Israel brings them protection, brings them his blessing, and brings them very peaceful life, because God is sharing his glory with his people. His people are now covenanted people with God under Sinai covenant, and it is a tremendous blessing to have God among them. So that is the picture of temple. But within few years, we see the abominations creeping into this temple, and finally God decides to leave this temple. God's presence leaves in Ezekiel 9, 10, 11 chapters, and he leaves by stages. So this is called abomination desolation. So we will quickly go through Ezekiel 8, first few verses to come to the second abomination. We did this last time, but I just want to read it again to recap. And it came to pass in the 6th year, in the 6th month, in the 4th day of the month, as I sat in mine house, and the elders of Judah sat before me, that the hand of the Lord fell there upon me. So prophet Ezekiel is in Babylonian captivity, and he, along with elders of Israel, were sitting. It's interesting. The elders, were there 70 elders sitting there? I don't know. The elders are sitting, and here the vision is showed to the prophet by God about elders, 70 elders of Israel. This is just fascinating the way God works. And then I beheld, and lo, a likeness as the appearance of fire. From the appearance of his loins, even downward, fire, and from his loins, even upward, as the appearance of brightness, as the color of amber. It looks like Christ, probably it is pre incarnate Jesus Christ. And his likeness is as appearance of fire. And Septuagint renders it differently. And I looked, and behold, the likeness of a man, not the likeness of fire. He is in the likeness of man, perhaps Son of Man, and perhaps pre incarnate Jesus Christ. From his loins and downward, there was fire. And from his loins upwards, there was appearance of amber. So pretty similar, except the appearance of man instead of fire. And verse 3 of Ezekiel 8, and he put forth the form of a hand. So from this glorious appearance of angelic being or Jesus Christ, whatever the case may be, a hand comes out of that and holds the hairs, the lock of the hairs of prophet Ezekiel. So he took me by the lock of my head, and the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heaven and brought me in the visions of God to Jerusalem. Now he is transported to Jerusalem and to the temple in visions, in spirit, to the door of the inner gate that looks toward the north, and there was seat of the image of jealousy, which provokes to jealousy. So this is first abomination. And then behold the glory of God of Israel. There was according to the vision that I saw in the plain. So glory of God was not on the whole in the Holy of Holies, on the Ark of the Covenant. So it has already moved. So we can see glory of God begin to leave, even at the beginning of the vision shown to Ezekiel. Continuing, verse 5 of Ezekiel 8, then he said unto me, Son of man, lift up your eyes now the way toward the north. So I lifted up mine eyes the way toward the north, and behold, northward at the gate of the altar, this image of jealousy is in the entry. So in northern gate, still we are discussing the first abomination, image of jealousy. Now we will come to second abomination. And he said furthermore unto me, Son of man, see you what they do? Even the great abominations or greater abominations that the house of Israel commits here, that I should go far off from my sanctuary. See how big abominations these guys are doing in my temple. And how do you suppose that I would stay here? I have to move off because I cannot coexist with evil and abominations. But turn you yet again, and you shall see greater abominations. So God is moving Ezekiel into the second abomination, which he calls a greater abomination. And he brought me to the door of the court, and when I looked, behold, a hole in the wall. So here it is a hole already in the wall. And then God asks him to dig. It doesn't quite uh, logically satisfactory, because if there is already a hole, why should you dig? This is again Masoret text. But if you go to Septuagint, you will have a different rendering. And here it says, and he brought me to the porch of the court. There is no hole, according to Septuagint. Let's continue. Verse 8. Then he said unto me, Son of man, dig now in the wall. So, and when I have dug the wall, behold a door. Septuagint, again, he says, he said to me, that is, God said to me, Son of man, dig. So I dug, and behold a door. So this is more reasonable Septuagint. So now the hole is dug, and then he hits a door. And then God asks him to open the door. Under the command and instructions of God, he opens a door. Figuratively, God is to give us a door of understanding. Even though you penetrate into the inner chambers, you see the abominations, but still you can't quite understand. You need Spirit of God. You need wisdom of God. You need discernment of God. That is what I believe the door was. And he said unto me, go into the door, Ezekiel, and behold the wicked abominations that they do here. Who are they? 70 elders in the shadow, and the leaders, pastors, ministers, deacons, elders, all the leadership in reality. And he said to me, go in and behold the iniquities which they practice here. That is in the Septuagint. And let's continue. Verse 10. So I went in and saw, Ezekiel writing, so he went in and saw, and behold, every form of creeping things and abominable beasts and all the idols of the house of Israel, and portrayed upon the wall round about. So the chamber is full of abominable creeping things, abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel. Many commentators tell us that probably they are Egyptian idols, which they are familiar. And some of the commentators would add birds also, because it says idols of the house. So they include birds also. So we have massive idolatry secretly practiced inside the temple of God. That is the abomination. Ezekiel 8 in Septuagint, verse 10. So the same verse. So I went in and looked and beheld vain abominations and all the idols of the house of Israel portrayed upon them round about. So what is missing? We have creeping things, abominable beasts. Some of these descriptions are missing in the Septuagint. It merely says abominations. Here, there could be more descriptive words of abominations. That's not a big difference that would bother us. Verse 11, and there stood before them 70 men of the ancients. This phrase is understood as 70 elders of Israel. How many elders were there in Israel when they signed the Sinai covenant? 70. Now here, God is showing 70 elders. What does it mean? It means to me, all of the leadership went astray. All the leaders, all the ministers, pastors, and elders, deacons of the groups, they all became bad. They're all practicing abominations secretly. When we come to spiritual reality, are all of them are evil? I don't know. There could be exceptions, but this could be a general statement. So let me read this verse again. And there stood before them 70 men of the ancients of the house of Israel, and in the midst of them stood Jazaniah, the son of Shaphan. So they have some kind of leader or some kind of cryptic code word God uses. I have not done enough research on Jazaniah. Perhaps if I find something, I will take this portion next presentation. But let's continue. With every man, his censer. Every man. So every leader is a censer in his hand. Censer is a pot, is a metal pot, usually a golden bowl in which the hot coals of fire are put from the altar of incense. So they take the coals, hot burning coals, into this small container, and with a hand they take the incense and they pour incense on the hot coals, so that the incense, the smoke comes out. It is a sweet smelling aroma. When the priests or the high priest do it in the holy place or holy of holies. So Aaron would take with both the hands the incense, and as soon as he goes into holy of holies, he puts this incense into the small container censer, and the smoke comes out and fills. If the smoke doesn't fill, the Aaron would be struck dead. So this is mandatory. So this is something to do with holiness, the whole process. The incense represents prayers, and you take censer and put incense. The smoke comes and ascends as a sweet smelling aroma to God that indicates primarily your prayers, primarily your sacrifices, and broadly it is your worship. But here, interesting thing is the 70 elders are not doing in the Holy of Holies or holy place. They're doing in their own chambers, in secret chambers. And they have their own censers. To begin with, the 70 elders are not priests. They're not supposed to be there anywhere inside the core of the temple. So that itself is an abomination. But they are doing a private censer and private incense, and a thick cloud of incense went up from their censers. What does it indicate? They are not worshipping God of Israel. They are worshipping another God, and they're praying to another God, and they're pleasing as a sweet smelling aroma to another God, and they are worshipping another God. How they are doing? In secret, in their own secret chambers, as we will shortly see. Let's do this in same verse in Septuagint. And 70 men of the elders of the house of Israel. See, here it writes ancients, kind of blurry, but Septuagint is bold. 70 men of the elders of Israel, house of Israel, and Zechonias, the son of Shaphan, stood in their presence in the midst of them. Each one held his censer in his hand, and the smoke of the incense went up. Verse 12, and then said he unto me, Son of man, have you seen what the ancients of the house of Israel do in dark? This is God talking to Ezekiel. They are doing this in dark. They are doing this in secret. They are not publicly doing, not in the presence and the knowledge and the awareness of people of Israel, but doing it in secret. If could this be possible? The leaders, pastors, ministers, elders, deacons, could they be doing something in dark? The whole congregations, all the members of that group, Christian group, not even aware that the leadership are actually doing these things in dark, in secret. Is it possible? I'm just trying to work out to harmonize how these things can play out in reality. And furthermore, God tells Ezekiel, every man in his chambers of his imagery. So each one has his private place, private chamber, a private house within the house of God, within the temple of God. So he has his mini temple to worship his own God. And he is doing incense, he's doing the smoke to his God. And for they say, here is an interesting phrase, Lord sees us not. The 70 elders are telling to themselves, or perhaps telling to the congregation or the group, or telling, deceiving themselves, or they're spreading a rumor that it's okay to tell. Whichever way this opens up, they say, they make two statements. Lord sees us not is the first statement. Second is, Lord has forsaken the earth. Neither of them are true. Lord continues to see us. He beholds evil and good. And Lord has forsaken the earth is also a false statement. Probably they are deceiving themselves and deceiving others. God is very much looking into earth. In fact, he has 7 eyes which will comb through the entire earth, beholding good and evil. Septuagint renders differently, and he said to me, You have seen, Son of Man, what the elders of the house of Israel do, each one of them in their secret chamber. See, Septuagint, very bold. In their secret chambers, they are doing, because they have said, Lord sees not, and Lord has forsaken the earth. So that is the second abomination. So we will expand this. Second abomination is they dug through the wall, uncovered the abominations done in secret. Every form of creeping thing, abominable beast, idol is done in secret by 70 elders with censer and incense in his hand, in dark, and in his secret chamber, a thick cloud of incense. A thick cloud of incense is an intense worshipping, intense prayer to their God, and intense communion with their God, whoever that God is. Shortly, we would see. And there is a rapport, a communion, a communication, and oneness with this strange God. And Jazaniah, son of Shaphan, also says, God sees us not, and God has forsaken the earth. These are the two statements they were telling, and probably they're indirectly promoting that. So these are the other abominations. We would not deal with that. Let's go ahead and see learn little bit about how the organized evil is practiced in secret. Now, we have sources, Professor Veith and Ken Fish, and I have put this in the email that is sent to you about this presentation. I have two links to both the research they have done. So there are two videos on YouTube. So I would recommend, if you like and you are interested in this presentation, go ahead and watch both of them. Check the email from Don Wales. So this is the source. This is not my research. I was never associated with any secret societies. I am not a member of any of the secret societies. So I'm an independent researcher. I bank upon others' work here because I don't have first-hand knowledge or first-hand experience. So these are two professing Christians. So I borrow these whole slides, next 4 or 5 slides from them. So Professor Veith, he began to study Islam. He studied Islam for several years. He went through several mosques, several Islamic structures. He traveled widely across Middle East, and he did his research. What is happening with this religion, Islam? So he took a magnifying glass and he closely studied for several years how the Islam works, how the religion is organized, what is the structure, who are the leaders, and how the whole thing operates. This is a fascinating video if you want to watch. He has a lot more details than what I am giving. I'm giving very high sketch here. So he studied Islam. What he found is that this is Islamic symbol. What he found is majority of the people that follow the faith of Islam, according to Professor Veith, they have one set of beliefs. They have Quran as their holy book, and they all agree on some do's and don'ts as they understand Quran. So that is their religion. And the majority follow Islam, which is dictated by Quran, teachings of Prophet Muhammad, and they have also uh, Jesus Christ as one of the prophets. Uh, so they have some overlap with the Old Testament and the mention of Jesus Christ, but it's a different religion. So all of them, 99% probably of the Muslims follow this, what we are seeing. And the majority are called common Muslims or goyim. Goyim is a derogatory word for cattle. So they're considered cattle by another group we will shortly see. So these are the majority of the people who practice faith of Islam, according to Professor Veith, not my opinions. And what they practice and what they believe are called exoteric doctrines and exoteric beliefs. So when somebody asks you, what do you think Muslims would believe, and how do they practice their religion? You would have some good idea. So when you are describing an average Muslim, a typical Muslim, what you are describing is this green circle. So majority of people, of Muslims or faith of Islam, practice one religion, but there is a small minority within the Muslims that actually pull the strings, that actually lead the whole people that practice Islam. There is one thing that Quran says, but another thing is how they practice. When the practice comes, the whole practice and what they have to do and what they should not do, how they make, how they are influenced and how they are manipulated, and who will pull the strings would be a different group. This is an elite leadership group. That's what Professor Veith found. So he found another group operating within the larger group. And this group is small minority, the top elite, and people who are movers and shapers of the whole of religion of Islam. And this group is very fascinating, or they have a different religion, different belief. So this is what he came. They are elite and they call themselves enlightened, or they have a different light, or they have greater light than the rest of the Muslims or Islamic people practicing Islam. This is a very interesting pattern Professor Veith suggests us. And they are minority, they are very microscopic minority. And then they have a different religion. They believe in a different God, and they have different beliefs, and they practice a different religion compared to majority of Muslims. Yet they hide their religion, and they hide their gods, and they hide their whole beliefs, and they pretend to be part of this group. So they do this secretly. So this is a secret society within a larger open society. The whole Islam is an open society, but the few people that shape it and pull the strings and maneuver it and lead it and time to time guide it, and they have final say, that is a different group within the larger group. This is esoteric elite group, and they claim to be Muslims, they claim to follow Islam, but they have a different religion. This is fascinating. He found it with Islam. He did several years of research and he found this pattern with Islam. Then he studied Roman Catholic Church, the whole system of Catholicism, how majority of Catholics practice Catholicism, right? They have, average typical Catholic, what he believes and how he practices his religion. You have somewhat that idea. When you describe a Catholic, you are actually describing the goyim or common of the Catholic Church. So Professor Veith found exact same structure with Catholic Church, Roman Catholic Church. So he started with Roman Catholic Church and he found same thing, common goyim of Catholics. They are common Catholics, majority of Catholics, and they have Catholicism that they practice that is called exoteric doctrines and beliefs and practices. So they follow the Catholic religion. But again, to our fascination, Professor Veith found that there is another group within the Catholics. They are actually top elite cream of Catholics, and they have a different religion, but they pull the strings. So you have the elite or enlightened elite group and minority. They're very small minority, and they have a different religion, doctrines, beliefs, and they worship a different God than the goyim and masses. So he found this. This is like 1.5 hours, 2 hours video. He went through years of research. This is what he found in Islam, and he also found Roman Catholic religion. Two religions he investigated and did research, and he found another profound thing. The first profound thing is this is same structure. They are worshiping a different god, and they are minority, and they are secret society. This secret society here is also worshiping same god as this secret society. They have same beliefs and as esoteric doctrines and beliefs as the red circle within the Roman Catholic system. That is a profound thing. That's a profound thing. Actually, he finds them to be secret societies. They secretly operate. They tell to other Catholics they are just Catholics. Here again, they tell that they are Muslims, they are Islamic faith. But in reality, they have different religion. They worship a different God than the majority accepts. They share same religion, the inner secret societies. So he found a link between the secret society of Islam and secret society of Catholicism. This is very fascinating. Now, let's go to next slide. He did research further, again, sources, Professor Veith. What is the anatomy of secret society? Remember, you have a red small code, the secret society. Now I'm expanding secret society, again, from both the sources. And they have their own inner structure. And this is the red circle, who are like a secret society. The society, according to these two individuals, they have layers or they have degrees. So not all of them share same religion. In the sense, they worship the same God, a different God from majority, but within the secret society, they have different degrees. That's what these two individuals suggest us. So when somebody joins a secret society, they're invited into the society. By the way, you can only join them by invitation, and you would be first degree. So you would join as a first degree, and the whole system, according to them, it works on lying and cover up and manipulations. At this point, if this red circle is an Islamic thing, what they will tell the outsiders is, this is a Muslim organization. We are doing good works, and you can come and join us. This is a great camaraderie, and they would not tell what is actually happening inside. So they pretend to be same as outside, in which this circle operates. So if it is working in Catholic system, they tell us this is essentially a Catholic organization, a small organization. So you can join. That's by invitation. Somebody mentioned that if you have more than $1 million, you get invited. So whatever the case may be, I'm not sure. This is what we read on internet. So then you have to make some secret oaths. Oaths you have to take to be loyal to the organization. Even though you are Muslim or you are Roman Catholic, still you are asked to take an oath of allegiance to the organization. And if you are faithful and work for several years, then they promote you a second degree. So you would go a little bit inside. So again, second degree have greater oaths, and at that point, you would be relinquishing your outer religion, exoteric religion. You are moving into a different serious allegiances to inside core, and still you do not know the real nature and real inside secrets of this secret society. The secret society is secretive in its operation, and most of the goyim are not aware of this secret society, even if that exists. But those who are inside of the first degree, they do not know what the second degree actually believe and does. So you have a different religion as you move inside. Here they look more like Muslims in an Islamic uh, context, or they look more like Roman Catholic in a Catholic context. So you would go into second degree as you move inwards into degrees, as you graduate, as you take more serious oaths, then finally you reach topmost portion, that is they call 33 degree. 33 degree, according to these two sources, you don't have much secrets. You know pretty much what the organization believes and practices, where it is heading, what are its goals, and they tell us that they knowingly worship Satan once you are reached 33 degrees uh, of that group. So you are core of the core, elite of the elite. So this is what this group pulls and manipulates the outer group, and this group again manipulates the outer, still yet outer group. So the whole thing is shrouded in secrecy between the layers. These guys may not know what is happening in this layer, and these may not know what happens to this layer, and they do not know who are in this layer. There is no personal interaction. It is completely secret. And these people are core, and nobody knows who they are in these layers. And they do not know if this degree exists. And if this degree exists, who are the actual real people pulling these strings. So it is shrouded in secrecy, according to these two individuals. And this is mostly like a pyramid structure. Majority here, they belong to first degree. And as you go up, there are fewer and fewer people, second degree, third degree, fourth degree. When you come to 33 degree, there are very few people at the top of pyramid. They head the whole organization. And 33 degree, they believe that they have maximum light from their God, and they are more illuminated by this light, and they have lesser light, the first degree. So the pyramid with its cloud of light, you see it several places. So this is one explanation they give about the anatomy of the secret societies. So here, people who are still in the first degree or second degree may not even know that the whole organization is going to serve devil, serve Satan. So they may think themselves to be Islamic or Roman Catholics. Uh, so that is the thing. So we can't brand everybody in this secret society as evil. There's a progressive evil as you move to the core. That's what these people tell us. So if you are here at the outer layer, I believe it's easy for you to come back to Christ. And as you go deeper and deeper into this inner core, it gets harder for you to come to Christ. That's what is happening. So that is one explanation. Let's move on to, again, this slide is also from these two sources. And then you have Islam, we have studied, Professor Veith. So you have a greater Goyim, majority of Muslims. So you have an inner core. Small elite have a different religion, different God, different practices, but they hide their religion, hide their identity. They pull all the strings. They move the whole organization. They are movers and shapers of the whole society, whole culture, and whole religion, that is the way it is practiced in an organized compartment. So we are talking about organized religions. And then he studied Roman Catholic, and he also found the same pattern. And here is the perplexity. Here is the If you extend this concept, this is what we see. Baptists also, we have inner core and outer going. Majority of Baptists believe some doctrines and practice them, and the inner core that are actually leading and shaping and pulling the strings, they believe a different God and they have different religion. And same is Lutherans. See the symbols, Lutherans. They're tightly put into an organized religion. And where we see this pattern, this is where the patterns are observed and studied. And how about other religions, non-Christian religions? And we see the same patterns among Hindus, among Buddhists, and among, how about Worldwide Church of God and COGs? Do you think there is a possibility of an inner core, esoteric, having a different God, different religion, while majority of COGs and worldwide, they might be practicing a different religion? Hmm. What about? And then they found that the 33 degrees group, out of this red circles, you have inner core 33 degrees. They all know each other. 33-degree group of Islam, of Roman Catholic, of Baptist, Lutherans, Hindus, Buddhists, WCG, or for that matter, any other religion. All the 33 degrees, the top of the elite, they know each other, and they meet together, and they have some common policy. And according to these two individuals, they directly worship Satan and demons, and they get their instructions from them. Is it possible that these leaders are burning their own incense and then in their own censers, and a thick cloud of worshipping Satan is emanating from these elite leaders? That is the question. If this picture is true, what are we heading? Where are we heading? One world religion. Because the same group is pulling the strings under different organizations, and if they happen to have same agenda coming down from Satan and demons, there you go. Everybody talking same thing. Everybody is doing same thing. This is just religions. And you can see all the governments and politics, you see the same pattern. You go to the entertainment and media, news media, you see the same pattern. You go to educational institutions, you see the same pattern. You see same pattern everywhere. Humans are organized into groups. Isn't it something strange? We have the same pattern. There is outer open people working in the organization, but there are secret inner group who do not have the same goals as outer group, but they have a different goal, different ideology, and different belief system, but they hide it and pretend to be part of the major group. But they are the main people who would define and move and pull the strings for the whole group. So we have discussed patterns very well, and let's move on to more spiritual. What is happening at whichever domain, religion, politics, financial, or military, whatever context where the human beings are organized, we see only two possibilities. This is the green group organized, and this is tabernacle, God. God dwells among his people, Israel. So wherever the true God of Bible is residing among his people, that is Israel. In shadow, it is the Holy of Holies, glory of God. In reality, whoever have Holy Spirit of God dwelling within them, they are all clubbed together as God dwell among his people, the spiritual Israel. Rest of them, we have Satan. I searched for symbology of Satan. I found this on internet. And Satan also dwells among his people, his people. So spiritually, there are people who are part and parcel of Satan worship, whether they understand it or not, whether directly or indirectly, they do it and they serve. They burn incense and they worship a different God. And this God claims to be this God. And this people claim to be this people. And they come and merge with the groups. So these groups, you don't see them as two separate groups, even though I'm showing them. In reality, when you step into any organization, religious organization, you see both the groups merged. And actually, we see two masters and two gods. This is where the secret society is much more vicious, much more organized, much more effective, much more lethal to achieve their goals. And I thought this might help you. How the secret societies, if you care to believe, then you can do your own research. At least you can watch those two videos. If you don't agree with this presentation, you don't want to go into these theories, you and your God and your Bible, I'm good with that. That's fine. You stay like that. Whatever God convicts you, you move with that. Don't bank upon a teacher. As a teacher, I have responsibility to show you things, but again, we have take it or leave it policy. So let's close with few scriptures with these two gods and two masters. Matthew 5, verse 23. If therefore the light that is in you be darkness, how great is that darkness? So, what is this statement? How do we understand? There's a light from true God, and there's also light from Satan. Both are lights. Now, how do we distinguish? That's a big question. Now, the light could be coming from Satan. You thought that light is true light. It's actually coming from God if you do lack discernment. So there is a light that is true and a light that is fake and tries to call itself as true light. That's why the statement, if therefore the light that is in you be darkness, how great is that darkness? This is direct words by Jesus Christ. He's addressing two lights. One is true light and one is darkness in reality, but it also presents itself as light and competes with true light. So make sure which light you have. What a fascinating commandment from our Lord Jesus Christ. Wake up and smell the coffee. Find out and figure out which light you have. And then he goes on, no man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. In one of the video presentations by Ken Fish, he says, somebody asks him in this interview, why people join these secret societies to begin with? Then he replied, for money and for power. Sometimes they go together. That's why they join these things. Sure, they would get money. Sure, they would get power. But they're losing something vital, the salvation, according to him. So that's why Lord Jesus Christ told you cannot serve the power and money on one side and God on the other side. You have to choose. Either or, they are mutually exclusive. And how about things done in secret? Ephesians 5, verse 8, for if you were sometimes called darkness, so you are actually received your light from Satan. You are in darkness formerly, many years ago, but now you are light in the Lord, in Lord Jesus Christ, who is the true light, light of the world. From him you begin to get true light, and you are light now. Previously you were darkness, but now you are light. Then if you are a light, walk as children of light. For the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness and righteousness and truth. Proving, you have to prove what see the ask. You have to prove if your light is truly light, and you have to live the light. Prove what is acceptable unto the Lord, and have no fellowship, no friendship, no participation with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them or expose them. For it is a shame even to speak of those things which are done of them in secret. What is he talking about? But all things are reproved, are made manifest by light. When the light of the truth of God comes, it exposes, manifests. For whatever does make manifest is light. Wherefore he said, awake you that sleep, arise from the dead, and Christ shall give you light. The true light you only get from Jesus Christ, the Son of God. And one more verse, John 18, verse 19. The high priest then asked Jesus of his disciples, how the true church and the true gospel and true Son of God, how would this operate? How would this operate? Would this operate as secret society? Would there be hiding? Would there be an inner core that believe a different God and have a different beliefs? No. There is no secrecy in true church of God. Everything is light and truth and open. So look at this statement that Jesus Christ replies. Verse 20, Jesus answered him, and I spoke openly to the world. Openly, there is no secret initiation. There is no secret knowledge. There is no secret light that is given more to the higher degrees. Everybody is equal in the true church. I spoke openly to the world. I ever taught in the synagogues, an open public place, and the temple where everybody is there, where the Jews always resort. And here, look at this statement. This is a profound statement. In secret have I said nothing. There is no secret knowledge. There is no secret meetings, and there is no secret knowledge, secret meetings, and secret maneuvering. Everything is plain. Everything is open. Everything is light, a broad day light, as a sun shining in its full strength. Everybody is open and bare. That is the truth of our God. And there is no place for secrecy. There is no place for secret incense and the secret censer and secret chambers, as we see in the abominations that are going on in the shadow in the temple. I hope this presentation helped you in a way, but we will end the presentation. Thank you for your attention. We will open the room for your comments and your insight.
Okay, anybody got any questions, comments, thoughts, ideas? Stan.
Yes, Degor, early in the presentation, you made a comment that God could leave a group, and I think the Bible backs you up on that. In Revelation 2:5, to the church at Ephesus, when Jesus says to repent, I will come unto you quickly and remove your candlestick out of his place. I'm assuming that can be equated with Christ leaving that group. I don't know. But my question is, you made a statement, I believe, that God always makes an announcement that he is leaving a group. What practical things can we look for to see that God is making an announcement that he is leaving a group? I'm done.
That's a very good, very important question that you asked, Stan. That's where most of the teachings are focused on. God gives us patterns. The patterns are so important that we understand, and that helps us to understand whether God is making an announcement that he is leaving. So before God left the Temple of Solomon, he made announcements. He made several announcements at several times through several prophets. So in fact, before he's leaving, he put conditions also. If you guys do these things, I'm out of the system. So those things would help us, the written word of God. And second thing is the Spirit of God helps us to discern and to read in between the lines. So when you ask every day on your knees for discernment, to discern the spirits, to discern the ministers, teachers, pastors, or the leadership, to discern the brethren, to discern the men and women, everybody, and also to discern the times. God also gives clues about the season that we are looking at. So the time is also another thing that is not readily apparent. So certain times you would see as they are unfolding, you would see greater probability of this abominations are likely to happen. So God gives multiple uh, clues from multiple quarters, and based on that pattern matching, we begin to see that God is about to leave. That's how he may not shout or whisper in your ears, "Hey Stan, I'm leaving this group, you better leave." Nobody heard that such kind of audible uh, speaking from God or Christ. Very few instances we see. Ananias was told, go and find this man Saul, uh, pray for him and put your hands on him. So then God directly spoke to Ananias, but I haven't seen or heard myself or the people close to me. So I would rely on the pattern matching, both in terms of the written word of God and the discernment that God gives to you, which is very private to you through prayer. And the other is the times that you are seeing. It gives a lot more clues when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies. So there is another factor. When the armies surround, spiritual armies, that means the judgment is about to come to decimate Jerusalem, which is church. And that's another way to look at it. We would be discussing this further in future presentations. That's why I want to make a start. Any more question? Nobody has raised the hands so far. Okay, Alan has raised.
Yeah, there's an interesting concept that's very similar to the departing. And it's found in 1 Samuel. When Eli, his sons die in battle, and the ark of the Lord is captured by the Philistines. And maybe many of you remember this name, Ichabod. Well, along with the two sons of Eli dying in battle and the ark being captured, at the same time Eli is receiving this news, he is so stunned, he falls backward and breaks his back and he dies. And his daughter-in-law, Phinehas, his wife, who was with child and due to be delivered, I'm reading now in 1 Samuel 4:20. And about the time of her death by delivering this child, I'll hold on for a second. If you're going to go to 1 Samuel chapter 4, 20, verse 20, I'm in. About the time of her death, the women that stood by her said unto her, "Fear not, for thou hast born a son." But she answered not, neither did she regard it. And she named the child Ichabod, saying, "The glory is departed from Israel," because the ark of God was taken, and because of her father-in-law, Eli, falling to his death, and her husband dying in the battle. And she said, "The glory is departed from Israel, for the ark of God is taken." We see a little bit of something here. This symbol of the ark being taken. And that because of that, the glory has departed. So you were talking earlier about the glory of God, or the presence of God leaving the temple, the desecrated, the temple that has the abomination in it. And here we see the glory has departed. Just something to think about.
Thank you, Alan. Very appropriate. Yes, Marlene.
So I'm looking at the destruction that comes. And Alan just brought out about how you had the destruction there, the death that happened, glory is gone. How do you see destruction that would happen in modern day? And is it something at the end, or are we seeing that when God leaves and destruction comes, is that something that's happening soon? Or is you self-destruct, or, or because God's not there, you get destroyed?
That's a very good question, Marlene. Most of the things that when we talk about churches, about truth, that's a spiritual layer. So the spiritual layer, how it operates is the people would be marked for spiritual death. Most Bible teachers believe it's a second death. It's not physically dying. Spiritually, you would be dead. And when that group is judged and marked as death, desolate, so the desolate would be left without inhabitant. So everybody that stayed with that group would be marked for second death. Or at least, like, if you don't want to be that harsh, you would not make it into first resurrection. I don't know how God decides. In the spiritual layer, we would not be talking about physical death, physical destruction. It's a spiritual death, and followed by, it's actually spiritual plagues. Lots of suffering, heartaches, mental, and there will be terrible spiritual crisis that people are subjected to when these plagues are unleashed. Actually, the demon spirits will come and take a ride on these people, and they would be enslaved into that other kingdom, and they're declared dead spiritually. So that's a good question. I don't have short answer, because we need to unpack these scripts to properly understand. We find answers to most of them in Jesus Christ's teachings. So Olivet prophecy is a good place to go. He talks about how these groups get destroyed. It is a multi-layered prophecy. And finally, at the end time, before second coming, probably it runs physically also. But most of them are spiritual scripts, and they run in life of every Christian, every generation, they would see this. So you might have seen already a few times you had to flee, but there could be more instances before we die to see these things. Thessalonians is another place where it talks about that. There's a departure from truth, apostasia, and then the restrainer is removed, and then this man of sin sits where he ought not to be, and he declares himself to be God, and everything that is worshipped, he becomes object of that worship. So it's figuratively with various ways where it is exactly showing that you are worshipping fake light and Satan and demons. Whether you fully understand it or not, that is the slippage. So the flipping point or tripping point is you are moving away from true God of Bible, and you are going into another Jesus Christ, another gospel, and another spirit. I believe that's where the tripping point, and marked for not raising in first resurrection. or perhaps it could be a second death allotted for that person, who knows, or the outer darkness, whichever possibility. I'm not very clear how God judges each individual, how he marks him, but names would be taken away from the book of life of Lamb. That for sure. You can ask more questions on this if you need more clarity. When we come to 144,000, the next topic, it becomes more clear. You can go ahead and read Ezekiel 5. Prophet Ezekiel has a beard and hair on head, and God asks him to shave. Why? What, Lord? This is Jerusalem. This is what is going to happen to the church, the groups, Christian groups. It's a fascinating study.
Dan?
Yes, your presentation gave some very valuable advice, Tagore. I do think we need to stay balanced, because just because there's an inner circle does not mean a secret society per se. Many times, I don't have the scriptures handy, but they can be located in the concordance. Many times Jesus took Peter, James, and John with him aside from the others. But in this particular instance, I think it's safe to say there was no secret society being formed. So and I'm not contradicting your advice. It's excellent advice, and we need to be watchful. I'm just trying to balance things out by saying just because a group may have an inner circle does not automatically mean that something evil is going on. I'm done.
That's a broad conclusion you are drawing, Stan. I think we have to evaluate case by case. In some cases, you may not be following the inner core. You are following scriptures and you are faithful to the word of God. In some cases, you are not even checking your Bible, and all the things that you have done is only to listen to the elite telling you what you have to believe. So if that is the case, then you have to evaluate, do you still have right standing with God? So case by case, you have to evaluate what exactly is happening. Based on that, perhaps you can draw more accurate and truthful conclusions from evaluating that. So I can't issue a blanket statement covering every case that it is not harmful. There's a reason God is telling you. Go ahead, Stan.
Yeah. If I gave the impression that I was going to assume innocence automatically, I misspoke. I guess I just wanted to say that, yes, the fact that we do evaluate case by case, and the fact that we evaluate means we are not automatically assuming evil. We are not automatically assuming innocence. We are instead, as you suggested, evaluating case by case. I agree with you 100%. If I gave you a different impression, that I must have misspoken. I'm done.
No. I mean, I wanted to add clarity to what you said. But look at the statement he made in Matthew 24. I would recommend that you go to Matthew 24 and look at his statements and just spend a little bit of time to ponder about what he is saying. What he said was, when you see the abomination that makes it desolate, as spoken by prophet Daniel, then you flee. So there are several case scenarios that are woven around what he said. When you see abomination, that means case one, scenario one is abomination was already there. the secret society is already there. They are already doing abomination in that group, but you have not seen that. You have not seen that. But suddenly God might come and give you insight or discernment. Then you begin to see the abomination. Then it is your responsibility to flee, obeying the commandment from Jesus Christ. When you see, you flee. Or there are no abominations, no secret societies, at least the case 2 of abominations by 70 elders in case of Ezekiel 8. When that is happening, that is not at all happening in your group, but you are vigilant and discerning, but you don't see any abomination. That's fine. But as you see the abomination is slowly being set up, when you see that abomination is rising and being placed, then you flee. So see in the multiple scenarios. And abomination is set up there, and you are watching, but somehow you missed it, and several months and years passed by. Your vigilance could be down, but suddenly God stirs you up, or you happen to see suddenly. Sometimes these evil things begin small, and they grow bigger and bigger. When they reach certain shape and certain size, then it's easy to discern. So you begin to see the abomination, and then you are told to flee. So the fleeing is put on the shoulders of the believer. You must flee when you see, whenever you see. The phrasing is whenever. It's not one time in your lifetime. Whenever, multiple times, you have to flee. So just spend on those 2 words, and actually, if you go back to Daniel, you will see 4 places where abomination, desolation is mentioned. You see the daily is taken away, the abomination is put, which makes it desolate, and the destruction comes. So this is standard script that we are seeing through. So yeah, if you are not seeing abomination, desolation, perhaps you are not responsible to flee. But what if you are negligent to be proactive and diligent? If you are negligent to ask for discernment, you are negligent to not even expecting abomination, desolation in your group, then if you are not fleeing, then the responsibility falls on you again. So think through all different possibilities that you may fail to flee, or think about all the possibilities that you rightfully flee. Am I
Yes,
making
yes.
sense, or I lost you?
You're making a lot of sense, because what you're saying agrees with Hebrews chapter 2, where Paul talks about not letting things slip, where Paul also makes a comment, if we neglect so great a salvation. So yes, you're making a lot of sense, and I believe that Hebrews backs you up on those points. I'm done.
Thank you, Stan. I want to add one more point before going to Gailen. It's not all moral righteousness when you come to new covenant in Christ. It's not all avoiding sin. There are different aspects, different facets that are added to new covenant righteousness. One of that is positional righteousness. Where Christ is, you have to position yourself there, because he said plainly, where I am, my servants also be. So if Christ is moving out of that group, it is your responsibility also to move out of that group. So this is called positional righteousness, and people would lose out first resurrection because they failed in that aspect of righteousness. Just think about that. Why he said that, where I am, my disciples also be. For that, it's a greater challenge to see and find out if he is there. Where is he? Where are you, Lord? Are you in this group or out of this group? If you are out, which group are you in? Show me, Lord. These kind of questions and thought processes are demanded on part of us. I think we can go to Guyline.
Hi, and thank you, Tigor, for the very. I already know what you were when you were talking about degrees and degrees, and it just confirms what because my grandfather was Knights of Columbus uh, in the Catholic Church. So I understand that kind of there's an elite group that exists in the Catholic Church. And then when it comes to the secular, uh, I'm going to mention the name. It's the Masons that have these degrees to the 33rd. And I have a friend who he was really intelligent and was working in a big prestigious college here in Makati in the Philippines, and he accidentally shook a hand of someone who was a Mason, and that secret handshake, so he thought that my friend was a Mason also, and they were talking, and then I don't know, somewhere along the line, because this friend of mine is a Catholic, and when he saw that the cross was being stepped on, he knew there's something really wrong. I mean, he got out from there. So uh and then, because like for me, I had to renounce and do deliverance for my family of my grandfather being Knights of Columbus. But I think he could also be, even our country has the Masonry heroes, like those who founded our government are Masons. So it's a challenge to ask for forgiveness for your country and your family and your ancestors. So, and that's only in the personal, but now in the country, and what you're talking about on religions is true, because the Catholic Church has an ecumenical decree a few years back that they're meeting with other Hindu, Buddhists, and other religions, and they had this big meeting. And like the Methodists right now here, I was shocked. So I know I'm still involved with them, although they are against LGBTQ. They separated from the other church who agrees to bless them in marriage. They are having a once a month meeting with other Catholics to reinforce themselves to be united. So that's sad to see. And I don't know if they know what they're doing. So I guess that's a prayer concern now for me, who knows. And as you have said, I have to flee from that church if it's doing evil or wrong. So, and then did you know there's a new religion called Chrislam? So it's all coming together. And there's even a areas, I don't know where, in Saudi Arabia, there's 3 religions in one area, and that's the Catholic, the Christians, and the Muslim, that they agree to be in that place. And it has been built, already being used. So they are doing the one world religion as well. So, and the latest is, I don't know if you know that there was a UN vote to Judea, Samaria, and Jerusalem is called the West Bank. And right now, the UN voted that Israel has to get out from there in a year. So that's a big prayer concern, and it will involve the US, where all of you come from. And that's a big prayer concern. Who will be the leader of your land if they will agree? So that's huge. I just saw the video this morning and I went, oh, okay, urgent prayer. And even us Filipinos are guilty because we said yes to that UN vote. So that's the latest we have now on what we need to do and pray for. The prophecy is coming to pass that all the nations are against Israel. If this is the time, we just have to be very aware. It's physical and spiritual already. And what I'll also confirm that in Jerusalem, we were told that there's a cave. I forgot the name of that cave, but it's in the old city area, and they confer, or the those who are I am with, who have lived there for at least 17 years, they have confirmed that the Masons have a meeting there in that cave. So that is true, that they come in secret, and it's in that cave. We visited that cave. It's a mine. It's a cave and a mine. So everything is coming to pass, and we just have to be on alert. Suddenly, we think it's still far away. Maybe it's already at the door. So thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. I appreciate your knowledge in this area and your confessions in this area. Appreciate very much. True. On the surface, we don't see many things. Maybe we are very close to one world order or religion or governments, like whatever, like they all happen beneath the surface. On the surface, on the facade that the world gives us, we don't see often. We have to really see the undercurrents. So thank you for your comment. Yes, Marlene.
Yeah, listening to all this, and Tom and I are realizing how much of this stuff has been revealed to us with our last experience, how much is going on in secret. And you definitely have to pray for discernment to be able to see these things. But I'm looking back at, hearing things that the minister had told us, being he was on the board and aware of things, of what the real agenda was with the organization. And they go from 1 Corinthians saying, we all should speak the same thing. And of course, they're twisting what the first chapter is talking about in 1 Corinthians and making it their agenda that everybody's going to speak the same thing in this organization. And getting people to do that with reading Deuteronomy before the feast. And everybody doing that together, and everybody's on the same page every day doing that. The thing they don't do is read it during the feast, which is what God instructs to do. It's kind of like Saul saying, well, I, killed off all those other things, but we're saving these for the sacrificing. We'll do what's right in our own eyes, instead of following exactly what God says to do. But you see this subtle submission of everyone and this secret agenda that we will get everybody to follow us and just do it and not stop and think. And it's just, you get sucked into it. Because, what's wrong with reading Deuteronomy and doing it all together and, that kind of thing. But there were things that he had said of what the agenda was that the minister had told us that it's like, wow, this stuff is going on behind the scenes and the people aren't even aware of it. So it's interesting.
Thank you, Marlene. I think you made two very critical points. One is need for discernment. Absolute. You can't survive spiritually in these battles without spiritual discernment. Second thing is you must be aware and you must be expecting these things. You can't afford to sleep or sleepy. It behooves us all the more to study teachings of Jesus Christ. The amount of details that he goes to and amount of counsel he gives to us through his teachings is so massive and so profound. I know traditionally we just go to Sermon on the Mount. True, that is important, but that is just beginning. You have a lot more actually he unleashed. Some of that we will cover in Luke, but absolutely necessary discernment. How much? Because we are engaged in the spiritual warfare, asynchronous warfare. Thank you for your comment. Yeah, go ahead. You yourself are the organizer.
Those of you who know Dan DeFranco, he's spoken several times on our Friday night. If you have Facebook, you go to his wall. He's going step by step the infiltration of Masons into worldwide, going back into the 40s and 50s. He's going through all the documentation and how the Masonic order was actually behind a lot of his trips that he made to all the different world leaders. And then some of the public video that was released that had some questionable material in it. If you're interested in that, it's Daniel DeFranco. And if you can get to his wall, he's got all sorts of videos that he explains all that. That's it.
Thank you, Don. I wasn't aware of that. Thank you. I will check out. Daniel DeFranco, right?
Right.
I wonder if anybody watched any of the videos, 2 videos I have put in the email. If not, if you like the subject, definitely watch both of them.
Yeah, there was a video a while back about our founding fathers. And there's all sorts of, there's pictures of Washington in a kilt. He was part of the Scottish Rite. A lot of the leaders were part of the Scottish Rite, which is very close to being a 32nd, or the 32nd degree second. They're close to the top. And many of our founding fathers were part of that organization. So kind of scary.
Yeah, in this second video, he addresses some of the presidents who were and who were not. Yeah, first one, Professor Veith explains the concepts, all the diagrams. And the second one, how to get out of them. If you happen to be part of them, it's not easy to get out. just walk out according to the second video, that is Ken Fish. He has wide experience. His deliverance ministry, as Guylaine mentioned, you have to, according to him, you have to undo the oaths that your grandparents or forefathers took. According to him, when they take the oath, they will pledge all their progeny, all their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, to the spiritual forces of darkness. So those things have to be renounced according to this deliverance ministry of Ken Fish. So he goes through elaborately those things, but I'm not knowledgeable to recommend it or not to recommend it, simply because I'm not knowledgeable in that area. But do your own research and do your own discernment. Don't blindly trust anybody. Just ask God and make your antennas up. Regarding this subject, I see mostly two reactions. One is denial. They deny that these things exist. The second reaction is they are obsessed with them. So I think both are unhealthy. A healthy Christian would be somewhere in between. I'm done.
Any other comments? Ellen?
Yeah, I would say also you can go into the opposite ditch. On the one hand, we have people who are completely unaware and don't want to be aware. On the other hand, we have people on the opposite side who are fearful and are consumed by the concept, and they live in fear every day because this could be the end of the world, and it could be a one world government that's going to persecute me. And so they live their lives suspicious of every person that comes along that they might be a part of a satanic system. So you can go to the extreme and cripple yourself by being consumed with it. And you can see, maybe some of you have known people who have gone that way and are suffering as a result, having an unbalanced view. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, is something that we ought to focus on more so than being consumed by fearfulness. Anyway, it can go either way. Either extreme really is not helpful.
Alan, what would be some of the scenarios where fear overtakes you? You said crippling you. Like, can you give us a couple of examples?
Yeah, sometimes people will spend hours and hours on the internet looking at all the thousands and thousands of videos on the Illuminati and on other more lesser known groups, and all the demonic stuff that you can pour over. I mean, I've watched a lot of videos on this just not too long ago, and there's no end to it. And it captivates you, but it's also addictive. And if you're not careful, you get so addicted to it that your mind is fixated on it. And you begin to, like I said, be consumed by it. So at no place in Scripture are we told that we should worry and worry and worry. We're told not to fear. So when persons get fixated on the fearfulness of the future, and they worry about the future continually, I guess that's mainly what I was talking about. Because there's so much information available out there. A person could inadvertently spend their time and energy on the negative, where Philippians tells us whatever things are lovely, whatever things are true, whatever things are a blessing, focus on these things, not on the things of Satan. So while we, on the one hand, must be aware of those things, that there is a prince of the power of the air, and we can't be in denial over that. We, at the same time, don't want our lives consumed by it, right? Because if we do, then we end up in the camp of, I'm suspicious of everyone all the time. And it ends up being a kind of a mental illness, a paranoia, if it isn't kept in balance. What do you think?
Yeah, right. You get paranoid about everything. I know personally some people who are drowned in these conspiracy theories and the secret societies. They're afraid of everything.
Yeah.
They don't want to buy the plastic wrapper that they sell to cover the food when you put it in refrigerator. They're afraid that there is some conspiracy in that plastic wrapper. So they're frightened and terrified of anything and everything that possibly are done by these secret societies. So they're almost to the point of delusion. But where is God? Where is your faith? Why don't you look to his throne? So those kind of questions we should ask. You're right. You want to say something, Alan, before we move to?
Well, no, that was the main point I wanted to make. If a person wants to explore these things, they must do it with the determination to not allow it to be overpowering or all-consuming.
Yeah. Yes, buddy, please go.
No, figure out how to unraise my hand there. No, a lot of these conspiracy things, if you get into them and really start studying them, they become a distraction, a tremendous distraction. I know several people that in the past were just locked into politics or locked into these conspiracy theories. And it, like Alan said, it consumes their life and they forget what they're all about if they ever were a Christian. That's not good. It's easy to become distracted about anything, and especially politics or the Masons or the Knights of Columbus, et cetera, and we're not going to change what's going to happen to the world anyway. So why worry about it? Why not just do what we're supposed to do? Study and try to work out our own salvation and let everything else go by the way that it's going to go by. So anyway, that's all I had.
Thank you, buddy, for the good advice.
Dan?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we as human beings are so good at practicing what I like to call ditchism, because it is true that we need to be vigilant. I think there are warnings throughout the New Testament writers to be vigilant, but Ellen has a good point. When that vigilance is carried to an excess, it can actually be harmful. So maybe one of the best things we can do is to pray to God for balance so that we don't neglect watching, but on the other hand, we don't let it become a distraction either. I'm done.
Good advice, Stan. Yeah, praying for balance. I like it very much.